Every moment, every idea, every breakthrough starts with a human being. Research isn't about data, it's about people. But in reality, researchers spend 80% of their time wrangling data and only 20% uncovering real insights. In a world flooded with information, how do you find what matters? You start with ResearchHX, the AI-enhanced solution built for researchers. Researchers who know that behind every number is a real person, a story, a spark. Imagine harnessing data as it rolls in to make smarter decisions faster. From fieldwork to final reporting, sample management handled, data analysis automated, insight sharing just one click away. No more siloed teams and disconnected tools. ResearchHX brings it all together in one seamless platform. Because when you listen deeply, you see clearly, you act boldly. ResearchHX, efficiency, intelligence, insight, all in one.
Been on TV for quite, or no, is it still on TV? I haven't had a TV for a long time. That's what I'm trying to say. This is on me. Apparently it's still on. Has everybody watched, it's Jeopardy, right? That's the, okay. Have everybody watched Jeopardy? That feel when you haven't plugged in a cable TV in 10 fucking years. It's like, oh, I'm out of touch. Cool. Well, I hope everybody is feeling, once again, well caffeinated, well fed, and very excited for a very special afternoon program. I think there was no way we were going to get through this week without doing a whole afternoon on AI. Like, we're in San Francisco, we got to talk about it. Otherwise, the VC gods will smite us down for not creating value for shareholders or something. Anyway. Cool. Well, we're very excited to kick this off. If you're trickling in, come on in, grab your seats. I need a clicker. Mike, can I get the clicker? Someone have the clicker? Have they have the clicker? Caleb, do you have the clicker? Where did Caleb go? Do you have the clicker? No, okay. BRB. Okay, now we're really going to start. That was just a preamble. Cool. So first of all, as we do with all of our programs, big round of applause for our wonderful sponsors once again for making this wonderful and free learning event possible and happening. We're so glad to have you here. And to kick off our AI and UX Research Day, I have two of my wonderful friends here. We've got John and Jane. Those are actually their names. That's not like a random missing person joke or something like that. So come on up and tell us what's going on.
Thank you, Alec.
Oh, thanks, man.
Good afternoon. I'm John. I'm the COO at Maze. Permit me to start with a bit of market research. How many of you are your Maze users out there? A few of you guys, all right, customers, thank you. How many of you know that Maze has both a really badass, unmoderated prototype testing tool, How many of you know that we also do moderated? Okay, a few of you. All right, all right, the sponsorship was worth it. We're generating some brand awareness. How many of you know that we're about to launch an AI moderator? Okay, you do now. All right, mission accomplished, thank you. It's a democratization joke in there somewhere.
Yeah. I'm not going to try and find it right now. My name is Jane Davis. I am a lapsed researcher turned product manager at Maze. And I'm actually here today up on this stage because we're launching an AI moderator. And the reason you haven't seen it yet is because we wanted to take our time and do our research. And I wanted to come to this audience because, one, I'm going to try and recruit a bunch of you to participate in research sessions after this. But two, we've been talking a lot in the community for the last decade plus that I've been part of it about impact and how we drive impact and what research impact looks like and how we measure it and all of that. And so I did this research to understand organizations where research has high impact. What are the things that stakeholders there care about? And I wanted to come to this audience while Alec throws clickers around, and I wanted to ask and see what you thought that would be. What do stakeholders at high research impact organizations value more than anything else? And just shout it out. Value, just creating value for shareholders. No, it's trust. So I know you hear a lot from your PMs, like, oh, research needs to be fast, research needs to be adaptable, et cetera. But the number one thing stakeholders that these organizations care about is trust. And that's really what we've been trying to deliver at Maze, is an AI moderator that actually facilitates building trust. Researchers care about delivering great work. And it turns out stakeholders care about being able to trust that work. And so at Maze, what we've been trying to do is really thoughtfully lead with our AI tools in a way that helps all of you create and maintain that trust with your stakeholders. And
we'll be demoing it this week, so please stop by the booth. You can check out our moderated, unmoderated capabilities, and we'd love for you to take a look at our AI moderator and help us build it with trust at the center. Thank you all.
Thank you, Maze. Okay, now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our host for this afternoon. This is an individual who's had quite a bit of experience dealing with AI types of products, and the perfect person, I think, to be leading us through some interesting and potentially challenging conversations throughout the afternoon. She's a wonderful research leader who's worked at a lot of the companies that you know and has held senior leadership roles there, and lucky to call her my friend. Her name is Heather Breslow. Heather, will you come up and take it away?
Thanks, Alec. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is a room full of people who know how to ask hard questions. A lot of us have actually built our careers on navigating and making sense of these new and ambiguous and new spaces that are still being defined. And at the moment, I think we find ourselves in the midst of all of those things. So each of the speakers you're going to hear from today are, during this session, are asking, what does AI mean for us as researchers? I think it's the right question to ask. I think we can all agree that if we were building the internet from the ground up today, there's probably a couple things that we might do differently, and we should approach this moment with a very high degree of intention. There's two things that I think leaders in our field can do right now amidst all of the change that we're seeing and all of the uncertainty that we're experiencing. One of them is to reduce or remove that uncertainty. That includes tactical, technical, and collaborative work, like we're going to hear about today. And each presenter in this session is staying in dialogue with the AI tools, and in some cases, actually helping to shape them. And all of them are thinking very deeply about the kinds of opportunities that we hope AI creates for us and how we want it to show up in our lives. The other thing that research leaders can do is, besides reducing uncertainty, is by engaging with these tools to make them feel familiar and also to make them better. But in addition to that, they can create more space for uncertainty, which requires a lot of emotional work. So I'm sure each of these leaders is also doing that. They're finding the emotional capacity to sit with the unknown, to sit with questions that don't have immediate answers, and create space for this community and for their teams and for themselves to continue showing up in ways that allow us to stay present and intentional and grounded through all of this change. I'm so excited to hear from every single one of them, their tactics, their visions, their perspectives on the future of our field. So to kick it off, please welcome Caleb.
Thank you. Good job. I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, so hi, I'm Caleb. I'm an AI curious researcher at Instacart, where I've had the fortunate opportunity to work on some of the leading research at some foundational AI research projects, such as what does the future of shopping look like in the age of AI, or how about responsible AI principles, and how do we implement those? But before I get too far ahead, first, I want to thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk with you today about the topic that's on everybody's mind, and if you're like me, on everybody's LinkedIn feed, AI and its impact on and usage of AI within UX research. Engaging in AI, honestly, it feels like a complex new dance move with powerful, sometimes unpredictable dance partner. Some might even call it a dance with the devil. And today, we'll be exploring this as we can navigate and harness AI's power effectively and efficiently while maintaining our integrity as researchers, or as I like to say, keeping our souls. Over the past 2 years, I've slowly and cautiously integrated generative AI into my research process. Overall, I'm actually leveraging around 11 different generative AI tools and counting, thanks for all the wonderful examples here, that can assist me through various tasks on my research studies. Through it all, I've kind of learned what works for me and within Instacart's constraints, but I recognize that that may not be the case for everybody here. However, I do really hope that you can take away some key things from this presentation that you can integrate into your own experiment with AI. Speaking of which, a quick show of hands, how many of you have used generative AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, or others somewhere within your research process? Okay, this is a lot. That's not in line with market research, just to let you know. In a recent Figma 2025 AI report, they actually showed that 85% of UX professionals, made up of designers, developers, as well as researchers, find that AI to be essential for the future of their work and their practice. In a separate report by Mays, shout out, just 37% of researchers are actually utilizing AI. And furthermore, 21% are utilizing AI only in most of their studies. So we know it's important, but yet we're not really adopting it. Now, why might that be? Put your hand up if you've been ever less than thrilled, or dare I say, disappointed with the results that you got back from AI. Yeah, that tracks. We both share in that experience. And in that same Mays report, nearly 3/4 of the researchers report the need for human review as a top complaint and concern of working with AI. After all, how is it supposed to save us all this time and also give us confidence? Additionally, in that same report, 67% reported concerns with trust and safety, that tracks, and nearly 40% cite ethical and privacy considerations. This isn't just about a frustration with AI or fears of job loss. There's a real risk here, and if we aren't careful, we risk being led by AI and potentially losing focus on what truly matters, the humans at the center of our products and our craft. To further complicate things and to add fuel to the fire, leadership across the technology spectrum and landscape are mandating that we become AI first, whatever that means. Suddenly, we're being told that we need to embrace this fancy new tool as our company strategy and productivity savior. And it begs the question, is AI our savior, or is it Satan? And honestly, is that really the question at all? Because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, AI is here. And we can either learn to dance with the devil, or we risk AI taking over and deceiving our partners with its fancy footwork and its quick answers. But also, maybe AI is not as nefarious as we make it out to be. It is just a technology after all. If some of you are old enough to recall, I am dating myself here, calculators were also thought to bring about the demise of mathematics and human cognition. But instead, what did they do? They assisted students to everywhere to find answers quicker and faster. We as humans like to anthropomorphize and demonize things that are foreign or make us uncomfortable. So, might I suggest a slight reframe? Maybe it's less about dancing with the devil and more so about learning how to dance with a new partner. And at times, it can leave us feeling like we're dancing in the dark. It's not enough to merely learn the dance, though. As researchers, we need to remain firmly grounded in our human-centered principles while evolving to know how and when to incorporate AI into our research practice. My goal today isn't just to talk about AI or really even convince you to start using it, but to actually share concrete steps, the choreography, if you will, continuing my metaphor. I'll walk through a recent research project so you can get an idea of how and where and when I danced with AI. Then I'll break down key techniques that you can use for leading with AI. And finally, tips and tricks to help you keep your soul, most importantly, in the process. To give you an idea of how AI comes into this process, let me walk you through a recent research project where I tangoed with AI. But first, why should you even consider dancing with AI in the first place? Simply put, for me, it's saving time. Just in analysis time alone in the project that I'm about to walk you through, I estimated it would have taken me at least 120 hours coding and synthesizing each individual interview. Instead, with the assistance of AI, it took me a mere 24 working hours. That's an 80% reduction in time spent, and that, my friends, is why AI may not be the devil that we fear. So taking a step back, let me first set the proverbial dance floor for you. The project, I'm sure you can all agree, is kind of crazy, but was a recent concept testing study. The challenge, I had to test 6 different concepts across 20 one-hour-long interviews, scheduled basically back-to-back, and start to finish, I needed to have insights to the team within 4 weeks. Oh yeah, they also wanted to test another concept that wasn't in the mix, and that wouldn't be ready for an additional 2 weeks. So in reality, that month that I had was really just 3 weeks. The dance was complex, there were very many moves, tempo was fast, and the pressure was increasingly high. Even before the interview started, I partnered with AI in preparing the initial choreography. I brainstormed with Google's 1.5 Pro model in Google Vertex's AI Studio on the research plan structure, drafting sections of the discussion guide, and even generating screener questions. AI was really great as a thought partner to help me soundboard different ideas and quickly iterate and refine my overall approach. It also helped me draft documents that I was able to review. It didn't write everything, and it shouldn't, but it helped me accelerate that initial setup. I estimate what would have taken me at least 4 days, I was able to do in 1. Once fielding began, the tempo really started to kick up a notch. So to avoid falling behind, after each session, I used Dovetail's AI to transcribe the interviews, and then I hopped over to Google Vertex AI Studio once again to help draft the structured notes based on the raw transcript, identifying key quotes, and even drafting Slack-friendly debrief versions for my team. This allowed me to start synthesizing as I went, staying in rhythm with the data collection, and instead of facing a mountain of data at the end, as well as getting time to insight, decreasing the time to insights for my partners. The most complex and arguably most complex part and critical part of this routine was the synthesis of it all. Here, AI helped to create a tagging taxonomy that I could then feed into Dovetail and use their AI auto-tagging taxonomy, or auto-tagging feature. AI tools helped me by initially drafting and spot-checking some themes for review and to expand upon. I then was able to leverage tools like Dovetail as well as Notebook LM to gather clips and quotes to further support my insights. And AI was particularly helpful at reformatting my notes and finding into digestible tables as well as summaries. But this was also where the need for careful direction, intervention, and clear leadership became most apparent. Without precise instructions and oversight, the AI could and did easily misinterpret, confabulate my findings. More on that later. And for the finale, socialization and stakeholder communication. Knowing our senior leaders are often on the go, I experimented with using Google Notebooks LM to generate a short podcast style of my findings, which they loved, by the way. This AI revolution presents us with a unique opportunity to experiment throughout the research process and perhaps break free of these annoying decks that we have to get logged down in. And just to show you an example of one of these steps in action, this video shows me generating a session summary utilizing nothing more than a well-structured prompt, a cleanly formatted transcript, and Google's 2.5 Pro model. Within the 5-page prompt, I've provided very detailed instructions, guidance on formatting, templates, as well as examples. We'll talk more about this in a bit. But thanks to the magic of video editing, you can also see the final output. In a little over a minute, I have a structured summary of my insights, broken down by key research questions, and even supporting quotes with timestamps. With the right level of details, upfront prompting, and well-structured information, I've been able to go from something that needs a lot of massaging to something that only requires minimal editing. With this project, would have taken me over 6 weeks to complete had I done it manually. I was able to actually complete it in 3, thanks in large part to the assistance of AI. But beyond meeting the crazy timelines, and arguably why should I have been put on those timelines in the first place, AI did free up critical mental energy for me to focus on the deeper strategic interpretation of those insights, the so what behind the data. But let me be clear, I didn't get here overnight. I don't expect you to. It has taken me years and lots of sweat and tears and trial and error to get to this point. So, next. So how did I get here? Making it work, ensuring I was actually leading my dance with AI and not the other way around, came down to understanding my AI partner, what worked, what didn't, and learning when and where to apply certain techniques and involve AI in my process. Speaking of which, as promised, here are a couple of key techniques that I've learned over the years. Hopefully, do with them what you will. But also, just a heads up, there are going to be a lot of small text on these next couple of slides. I'm very, very sorry. You can snap a quick photo, or better yet, just sit back, relax, and enjoy, because these are all going to be available to you after the show. The most crucial technique is having a clear choreography for your prompts. After lots of trial and error, I've come up reading white papers and courses. I developed my own crafty framework that helps me get marginally better outputs. It stands for context, role, action, format, template, and examples. I'll go a little bit deeper into each one of these. So, context. It is critically important for AI, and one of the best ways I've found to quickly improve the output. I like to provide a lot of context at the beginning of my prompts and as needed throughout the conversation with AI. By giving it all the pertinent information up front, the model will have a better chance at providing me relevant outputs and feedback. I like to provide it a lot of information about me, my role, my company, and team, and most importantly, my research plan, which actually includes the project background, goals, objectives, research questions, and assumptions. Context can be given in line with the prompt, or you can provide it as a document. You just simply upload it and ask it to read it. Or even by asking AI to research and summarize something for you. So for example, what are the best practices for drafting screener surveys for qualitative research? All of this becomes context for the AI and gives it a better shot at delivering value to you. The next is the role. Setting a role helps to further define what is meaningful to you, as well as help improve the relevance, nuance, and depth of the model's output. The role can be changed based upon what you're asking the model to do. So for instance, I may want it to be a principal researcher with PhDs in human psychology, cognitive psychology, human-computer interaction, and human factors, and with specific knowledge and experience related to my research subject and possibly what market I'm in. You don't need to add a role for every single prompt. You can simply just define it at the beginning and then leave it until such time you actually need it to play a different role. Actions or tasks are pretty straightforward. Like, what do you want this thing to do? Depending upon the model and the version, it can be good to give it step-by-step instructions. Just be clear never to overwhelm it with too many instructions. AI does have a tendency to get overwhelmed. It gets lazy and then skips things if there are too many steps. So do yourself a favor, try to limit that. If you have specific formatting, now would be the time to also put it in there. Or if you have direction on the output, so put it there. For example, if you have specific citations or ways that you want your citations for quotes or for articles, APA style, you tell it. Do you have a target audience that you are sharing this output with? For example, are you sharing the output with product, engineering, et cetera? Tell it so. Do you have a template? And again, this is more of an optional, definitely not required, but sometimes I do this. Well and nice to have, you may not have this initially, and that's okay. Because if you have an example of an output, you can give it to the model and actually say, create a template for me. You can use this template in the existing conversation with AI, or you can feed it into a prompt later on. Examples are by far the best thing at improving the quality and the output of the model. Second, and that was a lot to come to second, you need to know your partner's limitations. AI is incredibly dependent on the context of the data that you're giving it, that it needs to be logical, structured, and pretty much straightforward. Simply put, garbage in is going to be garbage out. Cleaning and structuring your input data is like ensuring a clean dance floor. It prevents unnecessary stumbles, slips, and fumbles. For example, when I was analyzing the different concept testing scripts from before, I noticed that the model was getting very confused. And rightly so, because during the interviews, I had randomized the concept orders. I also used unbiased titles to describe the concepts. So, for example, concept 1 versus concept 2. The problem was AI wasn't able to tease out and understand which concept was which concept from the transcript. So I had to manually edit the transcripts to label and correct concept to match my internal terms. After which point, AI was actually able to take it and avoid additional, like what I would say from this step is learn from my mistakes, to avoid additional data cleansing and transformation time sucks. Preemptively and proactively, think about and design your data collection for your partnership with AI. Third, don't try to teach your partner the entire dance complex routine. AI can and does often get overwhelmed, like I said before. It's better to break down complex tasks into subtasks and substeps. And the previous research project, feeding all 20 transcripts simultaneously to the AI, led to drift. However, once I started feeding it one transcript once at a time and having it analyze one after the other, it was actually far more effective. Plus, this also gives me the important opportunity to actually review the AI model's output, comprehension, and look if there are any inaccuracies. Fourth, it's key to understand your AI partner's working memory. So working memory is really the context window. Measured in tokens, the context window dictates how much information the AI can hold. Basically, the more tokens, the more words it can process and remember. Some models have small token limits, which means they'll often forget earlier parts of a conversation, or they will just skim over text to generalize, often missing the nuance and limiting the recall. However, newer models have much higher token limits, some over 1 million tokens. So, for instance, in the previous research project, I used somewhere near 400,000 tokens to analyze 20 hours of interviews. Understanding this token capacity was really crucial to picking the right partner for your research, which takes me to my next point. Pick the right dance partner for the right dance. AI models excel at different tasks and specialize in different dances. For heavy analysis and research projects, I personally prefer Gemini 1.5, which I used in this, and now 2.5 Pro, as well for mainly its token limits, as well as its high reasoning capability. For drafting and refining language, you may want Claude 3.7 Sonnet, or for brainstorming, you may experiment with ChatGPT 03 or 4.0. Bottom line, just know their strengths and their weaknesses so that you can choose the right partner for the right data dance. Here's a quick bonus tip. It gets a little bit into advanced settings. But basically, you can tune your temperature of your model through the temperature. So think of temperature as controlling the amount of improvisation or creativity of the model itself. So if you want to tune, if you set a low temperature, you're asking the model to be less creative and more factual. If you turn the temperature up, you're encouraging it to be more improvisational and more creative. So this will give you more creative and surprising outlets, but also increases the amount or likelihood of hallucinations. So for general analysis, I might turn it up, but generally you can find the temperature setting in the advanced setting with tools like Vertex IO or AI Studio, or you can simply put it in line and say temperature settings equal 0.5. I like to put it 0.5 and below. So pulling this all together in this section, our role is fundamentally shifting. With these techniques, we move from being followers in the dance to lead dancers. We set the overall choreography, the research strategy with using AI, and we guide and execute our dance with AI through careful prompting. And crucially, we interpret the final performance, the research insights, with our expertise. The key to dancing with AI responsibly really lies in ensuring that we're leading the dance and not the other way around. So, that's leading. How about saving our souls? Okay, the first, number one non-negotiable for me is always review and validate the AI's output. Simply put, AI's reputation isn't on the line. Yours is. So we own the outcome, so you shouldn't just blindly assume that your AI partner had every single step perfectly because it was confident. Does it match with what you heard and what you saw? While this doesn't address the human-in-the-loop challenge that was stated earlier, it minimizes the overhead. I still think that we as humans and researchers really should be very much in the loop. For if not, we really risk our own obsolescence. Additionally, blindly copying and paste comes with its own set of issues, namely IP infringement. So when we're dancing with AI, we need to be mindful of the ownership itself. And you really just need to ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, are the inputs in the documents that you're uploading things that you have the rights to upload? Number 2, do you have a secure and sanctioned environment so that your uploads are not used to train the public models? And number 3, are the ideas copyrighted or patented? If the answer is no to any of these, you don't really share this with AI unless your organization has a secure, private instance of the AI model with clear data protection agreements in place. When in doubt, you should consult your company's legal team or internal IP guidelines. Thank you, comms team. A crucial part of keeping your soul is choreographing for everybody by actively working to mitigate bias. AI models learn their steps from vast data sets, and these data sets can and do often reflect existing social missteps, misalignments, and, at worst, injustices. Albeit difficult for these to do with these black box models, we should, as always, actively look for stereotypes, underrepresentations, as well as oversimplifications in the outputs. Be mindful of the language that you're also using when prompting. Avoid gender terms or culturally specific examples unless they directly are relevant to your research. And if you need insights about diverse groups, consider putting that in your prompt. So for example, instead of summarize this user feedback, you could try summarize user feedback, paying attention to differing experiences across age groups and accessibility needs. Lastly, you should really have colleagues with diverse backgrounds weigh in on the outputs. They can often spot any notice of anything wrong in the data or that might be triggering. Another crucial step in this ethical dance is respecting the dance floor itself, which means ensuring data privacy and security. We must be extraordinarily careful with sensitive participant information and when we're using AI. Understand your company, state, and federal policies for the tools that you use. Anonymize the data, obviously, where appropriate, before you even begin or upload it to the AI partner. Never feed confidential or personally identifiable information, PII, into public AI models without expressed consent and adequate safeguards in place. Protection of our participant data is paramount to maintaining their trust and upholding our ethical standards. So please keep the dance floor sacred. The last pillar of saving your soul is really about transparency. Just as we meticulously document our methods and sample sizes, we need to disclose when and how AI is used in our work to not only our cross-functional partners, but also our customers and our stakeholders. Ethical leadership principles and the trust of our stakeholders really requires that we acknowledge our dances with AI and our role leading them. It's as simple as placing a disclaimer, like the one at the beginning of your report or document. Trust is really earned through transparency, so we can really lead by example here. Ultimately, this dance is complex, sometimes challenging, and potentially risky if you're using AI, but it is ours to lead. By embracing the challenge, learning the techniques for best practices, and when and where to work with AI, we can lead our partner in this dance. And we can further ground ourselves in ethical principles and put humans and integrity in the control seat. We can lead this dance with AI with grace, power, and most importantly, keep our souls in the process. Phew, okay, that's all, and I have about 1 minute. So that's all. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Feel free to connect or just pull me aside. Thank you.
Let's give one more round of applause for Caleb. Awesome. So next we're going to welcome Marika and Kevin from the team on LinkedIn. Kevin is going to be joining us first. Marika will join halfway through, and then when we get to Q&A, it will be with both of them.
Okay, sure. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Hello. My name is Kevin Newton. I lead the UX measurements team at LinkedIn, and I have a confession to make. I love AI. Right, Caleb, you want to come work over at LinkedIn? I love what you're doing. Wish all of my team was doing stuff like that. But if you hate AI or you are skeptical of AI, that's great. Please find me after and let's talk about it, because that would be an amazing conversation, a conversation that we need to be having. Otherwise, we might end up in a dystopian world, right, with sentient AIs as our overlords, blackmailing us into submission, or outsmarting us at every turn. Or we'll just float into oblivion, right? As Caleb mentioned, right? And marked as redundant and behind the times. So now more than ever, we have to speak our feelings, speak our fears, our excitement and anxieties out into the universe, to our colleagues, engage in conversations. And there just so happens to be an amazing platform on which you could do all of that if you wanted. I'm not going to say the name, but it's... Oh, I meant to hide that slide. I'm just kidding. Seriously, though, be part of the conversation wherever you want to be, right? Whether that's just inside of your company, on LinkedIn, on Blind, wherever it is that you feel comfortable doing that. And a year ago, LinkedIn UXR as a whole wasn't really part of the conversation. In fact, we asked our researchers, how much are you using AI and how often in your flow? And we found last year, 38% only of our entire team was using AI at all. And this is particularly on a weekly basis. And Marika is going to come up here later and tell you all of the good stuff and the amazing stuff that we did to help us change that. And so I won't go into that, but I will say what we did worked. Because now, today, 94% of our UXRs report using AI on a weekly basis for their work at LinkedIn. So it's happening. We're part of even if that conversation is only within the walls of LinkedIn for some of us, we're in the conversation, and I think that's what's important. Now, this is a joke that's not going to land very well now that I wish I could affect our product stats like this, but I digress. Okay, so I get the fun job of telling you about what we're doing with AI, and like I said, Marika's going to tell you about how you might be able to get similar results if you're interested. Okay, so here's our UXR team, sort of hidden behind this, having a great time at an offsite. It was a really fun one. But we ask questions just like everybody else, right? Questions that probably some of us have been asking for decades. What would it be like if everything we produced could achieve maximum impact? Wouldn't that be amazing? What would it be like if I could move faster without sacrificing quality? Right? What would it be like if everyone in the company knew the research we did, the insights we found, the recommendations we've made? So these are the questions that we started with when we started moving towards this weekly active use of AI. All right, so let's start with the first one. What if everything could achieve maximum impact? I'm not saying that we do achieve maximum impact, but one way that you can do that is the way that you communicate, right? And we know AI is pretty good at this sort of stuff. And so, sorry, other sponsors, I'm going to be talking a lot about Glean. If you were here a few weeks ago for the Glean conference, you'll know who they are, but we use Glean a lot. And so I have a couple of examples of how we're doing that. So I just released their agents, so we modified it, but we've had this for quite some time. And this is a writing coach. And so we took all of our guidance that we have for our UXRs, right? Start with the impact, talk about, how this matters to the business, et cetera, and then get into the details. And so you can take any document. I took this presentation that I'm giving right now, pretty good, and it's going to read it, and it's going to look at the guidelines that we've given it, and then it's going to read your presentation, and then it's going to give you a letter grade, right? B+. And you can see here, it's reading the document here, and the second one, it's reading the guidance, and then it's going to think about it for a while, right? And then after it thinks about it, then it's going to produce its response. Pretty good. And then it goes into why each letter grade was given. So you'll have strengths. The tone was good in this one. That's good. Clarity was okay. And there's going to be areas of opportunities. Now this gets a little dicey for this because this isn't actually a share out. So we'll say things like, you didn't start with the key insight. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But the idea is that our UXRs can then take their writing and amplify it very quickly without having to go through review after review after review after review. Then they can take that super, clean draft and then go to a crit, right? And then get feedback from our UXRs, or their fellow UXRs. All right, what else do we do? What would it be like if everything we produced, oh no, that's not it. What if you could save time without sacrificing quality? Well, I can't even get close to what you just saw. That would be the way that you can really save time without sacrificing quality, and I think some of our researchers are doing that. The example I'm going to give is not Glean this time. We have Hey Marvin is another tool that is not here right now, so sorry about that again. But and also Qualtrics, which is also not here. But we have a Qualtrics in-product survey that it's collecting right now. Some of you may have experienced it if you've been on LinkedIn. Where it pops up and just asks, like, how's it going today? Like, whatever you're doing today on LinkedIn, how's it going? And then we asked an open end. Well, all of those open ends get pulled into Hey Marvin automatically. And then I can come in here, and I filtered this for just the last 7 days. And I took all of the open ends, and I had it do a thematic analysis. There's a quick summary just for the GIF. And it puts it all into themes, right? Which you can then go back and cross-reference with what you have and add that to an insights deck. And then once you write the insights deck, you can take it to the writing coach, be like, did I write this in the right way? And then you can present it to the UXRs, and they can give you a credit, and then you can take it to your stakeholders, right? All right, what else do we have here? We're going to go back to Glean. All right, this is the big one, right? I mean, short story. I think Rick's going to go into detail. I know. We built a repository right before AI came out, and now we have this. That's all I'll say. But what if... I mean, my team spent a long time on it, too. And we presented, like, February 2022, or 2023. We're like, yeah, this is amazing. Like, why can't I just, like, ask it a question? And it tells me the answer. I'm like, because that's not how they work right now in this month. Okay, but, so... This is amazing, though, and this isn't a gift, so it's going to be move around. But who here knows LinkedIn has games? That'll be a fun thing. Hey, all right. You hear that? All right, he's going to like that, Laksh. That's for you. Okay, so we have games. If you didn't know, you can find them. You can find them. You just, tap on the left side up there. Like, I think it's your profile picture. But we've done a lot of research on games. So I went to our Insights Hub, which we train specifically on just our UXR data, right? So this is Glean. Glean can access everything in the company, our Slack messages, our docs, our Jira tickets, all of that. And but this particular bot or agent can only look at our UXR insights, right? And so we have all of our decks loaded into a specific place, and it only looks there. So when you ask, tell me the most recent insights related to LinkedIn Games, also called Project Play, it searches through all of that, and it gives you a summary of what they are. And this is great because, we were just saying, at lunch, how many people have had a PM come to you and be like, hey, I have this question. You're like, great, we did research on that, like last year or like 6 months ago. And they're like, yeah, but It wasn't for me. Like, that wasn't research for my team. My question's a little different, right? I say how much instead of how many. So could we just do a little different? But when they come here, it feels like it's for them, right? Because they ask the question in their own natural language, say how much, how many, whatever, and it generates it right in front of them. And I think that is the psychological thing that's going on with our partners, where they're saying, oh, wow, this feels relevant. This feels like it's for me. And they don't have to comb through a deck that we sent to a link to, which they don't like to do. So it's been great. And then not only does that, but it also shows you sources. So if they did want to comb through that deck, the sources are there. They can just click right into it. And it also shows sources that it looked at, but it didn't reference. It's like, you might also want to look at these. Like, I didn't talk about it, but these seem relevant as well. So it's really cool. Okay, my last what if, before Marika comes up here, is, but what if we went just a little bit further? So you may be familiar with the term vibe coding. We talk a lot about that at LinkedIn, and I'm going to embarrass Jake here. He's right there. He is on our team, smiling back there. And yeah, Jake, woo! And he's an amazing researcher. If you don't know him, you should talk to him. But he was doing this research, and have you ever saved a post on LinkedIn? Yeah? Have you ever gone back and found it? Even found it would be good. Much read it? Okay, you know where to find it. Talk to these people. They can tell you where to find your saved posts. But we know it's hard. It's not easy to find. And we've said this and said this and said this. And Jake thought, I heard it again in research. Instead of saying it, I'm just going to show it. So he pulled up Cursor, and he made this. It's a continuous LinkedIn feed. You can save it. The save is there. A few days later, you come back. And what if when you came back a few days later, there was just this little toast thing? I said, here's your save post. It goes away if you scroll, comes back if you go back down. You could just go say, hey, I think this is the future, right? Where we, as researchers, don't tell you our recommendations. We show you our recommendations in really branded, realistic feeling stuff. Good job, Jake. Yeah, woo! All right. But we're also using it in very similar ways, right? So this isn't just all we're doing. These are just some of the cool things that we've built, but we're using all kinds of things in brainstorming with ChatGPT, Copilot to do theming, Glean, Hey Marvin, Cursor, Claude, Replit, all of those. Okay, and with that, Marika's going to come up here and tell you how we got where we are today. Thank you.
I was on this journey with Kevin the last year and a half, and it's still exciting to see all the amazing stuff we've built and the tools we use. So thank you, Kevin, for sharing that. You might be wondering why this isn't happening at your company, although maybe a little bit of this is because you're all here today, maybe just not at the scale you were hoping for. And what Caleb already shared today, we also found true. We actually looked a little bit broader than just within a research team, and found that actually only 42% of office workers are using AI, so there's really a limit in this adoption. This is more sort of like what our team looked like a year ago. The really more concerning stat, though, is that what the same survey found is that 1 in 3 of them are keeping this a secret. Maybe show of hands, how many of you have kept the use of AI a secret from your boss? I see Kevin here raising his hand, which means that maybe Kevin and I need to have a conversation in our next one-on-one about all the ways he's using AI in addition to what he shared here today. I see some good news in all of this, though, and that there are likely people using AI on your team, at your company, and maybe just not talking about it. And what they need is the right environment to start sharing, collaborating, bringing this to the surface, feeling like it's a safe space to talk about, so that you can really unlock the goodness of this. I believe we've built a really incredible culture around AI, which is why we both wanted to show you some of the cool ways we use AI on our research team today and what we've done to get there. So I have 3 examples of things that we've done that have really worked well for us. This is me and Kevin on stage in December 2023. Realize actually it's the 3rd time we're on stage together speaking about various topics when it comes to UX research. This is the repository Kevin said he was so proud of and why he didn't want to tell the story, because he knew I wanted to tell the story. We had built our repository in Enjoy HQ. We got invited to speak at our product org, all hands, sharing this with the whole product company. We're like, everyone can go find our insights. We were so proud of it. At the end of our presentation, this PM runs up to us after and is like, this could be better. This should be AI powered. I want to help you make this a conversational AI repository. And you saw the outcome of that. Like you saw what it looks like today, and anyone can ask a repository any question. The moral of this story here is actually that partnership with that PM. He ended up being essential to our success. He works on our internal tools team and has always been one step ahead. Like, what's the next thing we're going to onboard as a company? What's the next tool that they're playing with? He's the one who got us early access to Glean, so we were able to build our repository before it launched to the company. He's always thinking about connecting us with other teams, trying cool things. And I know what you're thinking. Like, it's easy for you to say, you're LinkedIn, you have an internal tools team. I've been there. This is actually the first big company I've worked at. So I've been at startups and in consulting. And really the key thing that helped us with this was the partnership with someone who was also doing something interesting or thinking ahead. And I know that it's true at every company you're at. Maybe it's a team, like an IT team that's thinking about tooling for employees. It might also just be another team that's one step ahead. And go find them, go share your stories, go share what you're trying, go find out what they're working on, and see if you can leverage some of the goodness from them. A lot of our ideas have come from what other teams are doing and what especially we got from this partnership with this team. The second thing we've done is we've actually made this someone's job. In our case, our incredible colleague, Betsy Book, raised her hand. She's a senior principal researcher on our team, and she took the role of helping the company, or helping our team, really adopt AI. This was super simple. She just leveraged a super simple Google Doc and said, listen, we're going to have sessions every so many weeks, and we're going to experiment and try what this is all about. I'm actually intentionally showing you our doc from last year, because she really lowered the barrier to entry. I think it helped that she was an IC researcher, not a manager. And then also just the nature of what she called this. It's this like, let's experiment, let's get messy. Researchers like to be critical. There was a lot of like, let's try this and then talk about all the ways it doesn't work for us yet. And this really helped create this sort of feeling of, yeah, we can talk about this. Or like, I tried something, or like, I tried, we can use Copilot and Glean and then some of the other tools that Kevin was mentioning. A lot of those we've onboarded more recently. So it was a lot of like, well, let's try this in both the tools we have access to. Let's try something like this with not company data in another tool and see what's better. And that whole, like really that experimentation came out of these try AI sessions. And I remember so clearly the exec meeting that we were in where we decided that it had to be someone's job. It was like late spring 2024. We had just spent months scrambling to get our repository ported over into Glean so that people could search it. And there was definitely this sort of feeling of like, well, people will just sort of like, they'll try it on their own. They'll maybe like see if this works for them. And I remember realizing that as a director, I couldn't keep up with that, and I couldn't just rely on the company resources. I was like, we need more structure to this, and we need to really focus this. So highly recommend making it anyone's job to bring the team along. 2024 was very much about just like, let's try this for fun and see what sticks and see what works. We also realized at the end of 2024, we needed to get a lot more serious. And so this year, we've transitioned to focusing on tooling, on guidance. I love what Caleb shared about all the ethical use of AI tooling, and our team really craved that too. And so we've updated our guidance on that. And then skill building, which leads me to our last building block and sort of creating this amazing culture for researchers to thrive in using AI. This is all of us in a training session, actually by an internal PM, Zane. One of the things I was realizing, there was a hesitancy on the team. People were using prompts a lot and prompting AI, but not building apps in the tools that allowed us to build apps. And I think it's this like, it's hard to sort of conceptualize, like when should it be an app, when should it be now agent, when a prompt. And actually the same PM who helped us with a repository referred us to Zane on his team. And because he had been thinking about this and had put together a presentation. And so he came and gave a custom talk to just the research team, answering this question of like when one of these things, and also how to think about using Copilot versus Glean specifically for our use case. And we've done a combination of internal and external skill building, listening to webinars together, playing around with tools, providing guidance, taking internal training courses that are provided at the company, but then discussing them as a team. We've tried creating digital doubles of ourselves, using Copilot analysts, so like a deep research tool, or building a Glean agent together. Maybe after all of this, you might be feeling more like Kevin and a little skeptical and a little scared about all of the future that this holds, or maybe you're feeling more excited like me, like, yes, I can do this. I'm not quite ready to write the playbook on AI and UXR because things are changing just so rapidly. What I do believe really strongly is that we need to enable an ongoing open trial and error, because maybe something that didn't work last week will work today, something that will unlock your team. We really hope that these ideas help you confidently integrate AI into your practice and elevate your team's capabilities. Thanks so much. Come on up. We are LinkedIn and would love to connect and stay in touch and hear how your journey goes. You can scan the QR codes or just find us on LinkedIn. Would you like this one back? Sure. Yeah.
So we're going to take a couple of questions from the audience. We're going to spend about 5 minutes. We started a little late, so anyone have any questions for Kevin and Marika?
Yeah.
Turn it on.
Hello.
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, my name's Ibrahim. My question for you guys is, if you guys had to do this all over again in a much scrappier version with less resources, what would that look like?
That's a good question. You know, that survey that we referenced also said that a lot of people have admitted to doing things in ways that maybe they would ask forgiveness for instead of permission. And I think while that's a very blurry line, I think I would find ways to not use company data and use others. In fact, I did that. I built a heuristic reviewer in ChatGPT. I created GPT that reviews heuristics, but I couldn't put our prototypes in there. So I went through to test it and just took screenshots of our product. And then we used that for a while. Now we have Glean. I can create it in Glean. But a year ago, we didn't have that. So I think finding ways to not violate your company's data and use the tools that are publicly available.
I feel like we've been very scrappy. I mean, we feel so polished for a talk and like we planned it, but even those things, like it's sort of in reflection what has really helped us and how each of those like sort of, I don't know, cultural building blocks we didn't plan and set out to do. And I think they're super important if you're a team of 1 or 2 or 3 or a huge company. And we have been very like iterative, and I've actually enjoyed that. Working at a big company is sort of like, well, no one knows, no one has the definitive answer, so we're sort of figuring it out as we go.
Thank you very much for your talk. I really appreciated your idea about coding. Totally in line with that. I think this is the way for the future. This will save us so much time, produce more efficient outcomes for everyone. Now, my question is, as we, as UX researchers, approach this this way that you demonstrated, for example, coming up with a prototype that could be shared with stakeholders. In your experience, how do designers take it?
So when we went to Config, we did like a little unconference the last day because we were a bunch of researchers, and we had a discussion about this, and we had a designer. We actually had a designer there because we did it at our LinkedIn office, right, in San Francisco, and I think they're feeling the same way that we're feeling, right? I think that she was very honest, and she was like, "Well, it would be great to run it by the designer before you take it to the product manager because that's our partner and that's sort of our craft." Same way that we would want a designer who did some sort of empowered research or democratization to run it by a researcher before. So I think right now that's where we're at. I would say a year or a day from now, it depends on. It may be different. It may just be everyone's empowered to just go as far as they can, and no one has the egos about it, and we all morph into this weird, do-it-everything tech worker. I don't know.
The guidance we're providing for researchers too is also how you position it. Like, this is just what could be. And we did a whole design sprint on our growth team, actually led by design, that was very encouraging. We spent a whole week just using AI tools actually to dig into the problem. And so it was like use our research repository, but then also go use any other, go do deep research on this problem space. Then we had PMs talk to users directly, which makes us all feel really uncomfortable. And then the second week was like, let's go build solutions, and it was all vibe coding just to get the idea out there. And it was very much presented as just an idea. And I think it actually, BizOps was democratized in that design sprint, UX research design was, and it was a really incredible bonding experience. I think we've all been grappling with this longer than these other functions have, but everyone had to give up a little. There were also no PMs in this 2-week sprint. We all sort of just went and brought ideas to the table, and it was super clear what's not done yet. It's super clear that it's not the final thing, but really a great way it's really just an idea. Here's what could be, let's talk about this, and the conversation was just so much richer after.
Thank you both so much. It's very cool to see this end-to-end in practice. I think we all learned a lot in terms of how you can actually bring these things to fruition. So thank you both.
Of course. Thank you.
And now I will welcome Jan Blom. Come on up.
Excellent. Thank you, Heather. Let's see if I get this clicker working. Seems pretty simple. Cool. Well, I'm really super happy to be here. I'm Jan Blom, and just by way of introduction, I lead the UX research for the AI area within a company called ServiceNow. What I'll be talking about today, really, as part of my presentation, is where, obviously, in the B2B space, at the place where I work at, I'll really be talking about UX research in the age of AI in the enterprise context. And so the question would be, what is the type of program that I'm actually leading in order to kind of develop solutions and innovate, for our enterprise customers? The agenda today will be, I'll be starting at a high level, so I want to talk through a couple of numbers, really around value that we're actually seeing accumulate over AI adoption and even uptake, as we see it today, about 2.5 years from the launch of ChatGPT, I guess. And then I'll be talking about how does ServiceNow sort of plug into this, and this is just the intro, and it's meant to give you kind of an overview or context, kind of the fabric against which my program is running. And then really I'm going to be looking into challenges, and so as a research program, what are some of these areas or challenges that we're seeing as we're, let's say, driving our strategy of research, and how do we take those areas of challenges and sort of translate them into tenets of my team's strategy? So that's really the idea. And then I'll close by just summarizing, wrapping up those tenets that we're actually using as part of the overall program. Great. So let's go back, or not back, but up to the high level, and let's talk about enterprise AI. The first piece here is really around the potential of enterprise AI. And I'll start with this figure on the left-hand side here. So 4.4 trillion, which is basically the estimate that McKinsey has actually projected for, let's say, annual production, let's say productivity potential, growth potential that Gen AI is actually introducing. And the reason why I'm actually quoting the figure is the following. So I like their method. So they went and basically looked at all areas of enterprise globally, and they were asking, hey, like what are the workflows that have already been automated in the past, you know, pre-ChatGPT, pre-Gen AI, and then they looked at all of these workflows and the level of automation and AI assistance that they actually saw in those. And then they were saying, hey, let's actually take these workflows and supercharge those with Gen AI. So just like Caleb a couple of moments ago talked about his productivity levels going up and whatnot for the practice of UX research. And so basically this study was done across the industries and across different sort of like job roles and divisions and whatnot. And that's the level where they landed. The other interesting figure here on this slide is as enterprises are incorporating AI, so a lot of them actually are indeed realizing the ROI. And so that's actually interesting because it's only been around for, I don't know, 2.5 years, if not even that. And so it's a relatively sort of short time window to actually see all of this sort of value being generated. The other question, of course, that as a research discipline, we're asking about the uptake, adoption, and I was looking into, again, like generally, like what do we know at this point? The figure on the left-hand side is interesting. So if you look at Fortune 500 companies, there's actually a relatively large proportion of these enterprises, large enterprises, that are actually basically mentioning about Gen AI and how it's actually featuring as part of their business strategy. And so that's a pretty significant number, given that we've only seen this you know, a couple of years ago. The other number here or figure is really sort of, you know, we saw similar figures, I think, in Marike and Kevin's presentation, but like, you know, to what extent do we actually see usage and report usage among enterprises? And the figure is quite high overall. So we're looking at majority of enterprises that were surveyed by McKinsey, you know, this year, actually reporting about usage or uptake of Gen AI. Now, I guess the question would be, you know, how does ServiceNow come into play here? And I really want to give you kind of an angle where I'll try to paint the picture that, you know, what is my company about and what are we doing in the enterprise AI field. Our company is based on the simple premise that we want to make the world work better for everyone. And it's really about being super customer-centric, and then we're really in this business of problem solving. So we're looking at each customer, we're looking at their vertical and trying to understand what are the solutions that they may want to be solving in every corner of their enterprise. Where we do believe that AI is only as powerful as the platform that it's actually built upon. And so here we're looking into the power of a kind of a one unified platform, and then how do we unify different departments within the company. Of course, there are different types of workflows, whether you're looking into operations versus IT service management, etc. And then really bringing together different systems as well. So we want to basically talk to different systems as a platform and then extract the relevant data for the sort of capabilities and then workflows that we're automating. This slide here is really about the idea of you know, being the AI platform for business transformation. And so where we look at our platform as a kind of a single system of action, as it were, and then we're sort of trying to take these workflows and then understand this and then sort of develop and drive them across not only employees but also customers of any given enterprise. And that's really where we see the power of the platform, and then, you know, that's where we're trying to use the one platform to kind of go into each corner of the enterprise, as it were. So that's really kind of a general introduction, you know, what's happening in the field of enterprise AI, lots of potential, ServiceNow coming in as a kind of a company where we believe in the potential and we're kind of trying to customize these solutions as best as we can to our customer base. And what we believe in is that AI growth requires a kind of a strong foundation, and so you could actually look at these different types of technologies that we've actually been developing or driving in the past years. And the basic idea is that we actually want to meet the customer no matter where they are in their sort of AI adoption journey. And here on the left-hand side, I mean, you can see like more simple workflows, and so we're looking at scripted workflows. There may be certain triggers that are, like ending up in predetermined workflows. And then we're actually applying machine learning along the lines of predictive workflows, and doing things like trend prediction or similarity models and things like that. And then if the customer is ready and they are mature enough, they might want to lift and shift the workflows that we're automating and move them into a kind of a conversational experience, as it were. So maybe you want to interact as an employee, you want to be interacting with a bot in order to replace your laptop, for example, or inquire about your baby bonding policy in the company. And then the tip of the spear, really, where you see a lot of investment today is automated sort of agentic workflows, where there's a kind of a more level of, let's say, autonomy, and we see these automated workflows that are actually helping drive more complex problems in more or less an autonomous fashion. So that's really kind of giving you the idea, and we believe that there's a kind of a, every customer probably has a diversity of complexity in terms of the use cases that we need to solve for. And on the left-hand side of the spectrum, you see sort of these deterministic workflows where maybe the use case is a bit more simple. Maybe it's just about provisioning a laptop to replace an old one, for example. And then you move into these more complex, increasingly sort of complex workflows, where we actually do need that sort of power of sort of agentic workflows, where maybe there's more flexibility, or you need to understand more about the actual context or intent of the user. And so it's really kind of across this whole range that we're trying to cater these solutions. Now, the question becomes, given that we're a platform company and we really want to sort of drive value across a kind of a wide range of solutions, what are the challenges that I'm facing? I'm leading a team of researchers in the enterprise space. We're hyper-focused on the customers, and we actually want to innovate and help them, drive AI automation in every corner of their business. I'm going to talk about 3 specific challenges, and then kind of maybe address like how are we actually using research to mitigate those challenges, and then sort of translate them into tenets of our team's research strategy. The first one being value. I think the previous presentations talked about value as well. If I remember correctly, Caleb was talking about, hey, this thing that he developed, so it helped lift it helped release mental energy for him. So that to him was value being generated in the form of time savings, for example. So we see a lot of promise here. My first couple of slides were all about the promise and the uptake that we see so far. But on the other hand, how do you actually gauge value? It's a kind of a non-trivial question. It's probably going to depend on, do you talk to the chief information officer at a company, or do you talk to an individual employee who's trying to see a kind of an improvement in their daily workflows. And there's probably going to be, depending on the industry and the type of vertical you're talking to, so the value proposition might actually differ accordingly. So it is hard, and we're still early on. I remember last year Gartner was actually saying we haven't actually, 2024 is a year of experimentation. And so they basically were advising their customers, hey, maybe you just want to explore and understand how this technology is landing. And I would say we're still early on, and we haven't solved this completely. But from research point of view, it's actually a super interesting problem. Like, what are the techniques we might want to be using, across a wide range of customers? Are there any kind of like common denominators in terms of the types of value that they are looking for? And then I think importantly, how do we sort of feed it back to the customers? This is just a screenshot from a sort of agentic analytics dashboard. So as you're developing AI agents, what are some of those dimensions that customers might be interested in? And value is super important. You need to be able to talk about the fact that there is X or Y type of value being generated. And then as the customer is starting to implement and turn these capabilities into use, they actually want to get real-time feedback about, how is it actually going. So value is critical, and I think it's actually the kind of like, it kind of all starts from value, and that's where we're focusing on as a team, as one of my, let's say, tenets of my strategy. Second piece here is AI setup, and so I think the important thing here to realize, I'm going back to Caleb's presentation again, because he talked about all those different things that he's using to, let's say, tune the prompt, for example. So, I would say that developing AI solutions, it's actually different from traditional software development. And this diagram was kind of cool. I mean, it basically shows how Gartner is looking into kind of these nascent types of jobs that are emerging. So there are certain core jobs that they want to, they are recommending across the board, but they also see new types of roles like knowledge engineer or model validator. And so, and these are the types of roles that if you look into LinkedIn like 5 years ago, so maybe you didn't find these positions, but today you actually see an increasing number of these sort of nascent roles. And again, I guess what I'm asking from research point of view is, again, what can we do as a kind of a research discipline to help understand, what are these roles and types of jobs to be done that are actually forming up. And then it becomes a kind of a research question and challenge for my team. So what are the different techniques we want to be using really to understand comprehensively, like what's happening among our customer base? What are the different types of jobs where we might need to understand what they are, so that when we're actually developing these tools that are being used by those who are setting up AI on the customer side, for example, developers or admin users. So what are the things we need to be able to support in the tools that we're actually building? So it becomes a kind of an important question, and one that we're also addressing as a research team and as research discipline within my company. The third piece here is sort of revolves around the actual experiences. So remember, it all starts from value. So the customer, they want to buy in and invest in something that actually does create tangible value for their company and for their workforce, for example. And then next, they want to be setting up these capabilities, and they're facing these challenges around upskilling of their workforce, for example, or trying to cater for this kind of increasingly complex landscape that is required for setting up AI capabilities in a kind of a, let's say, secure fashion, for example, for their employees. But the third piece is really once we're actually ready to launch and sort of like, let's say, release these capabilities that the customer has actually ended up sort of, like, let's say, implementing on their side. The question then becomes, the good old question that we're, as a research discipline, we're pretty well equipped to address is really kind of the uptake. So let's say you have a customer that maybe they have 70,000 employees and they're able to use the conversational platform that we've actually built to them. And so then the question becomes, how do we sort of evaluate that experience, and how do we help the customer understand how, like, what's happening around the uptake or engagement and whatnot. The interesting thing here, and probably what makes this more challenging as well, is the fact that you actually, you see a kind of a different pace in the industry for development and then sort of like release cycles of AI products. I felt it. I mean, in my previous career, part of my career, I was at Google, working for Google Workspace, when the sort of ChatGPT came around, and then all of a sudden we were sort of like working at a different pace, and the teams were hard at work, producing high quality experiences that were AI powered. And then I joined ServiceNow about a year ago, exactly the same thing. So it's very fast paced. And I did find a figure actually that's, so it's demonstratively more fast paced. So 2 to 3x is actually the number when you compare Gen AI types of sort of R&D cycles versus sort of traditional software. And so And what are the reasons? It's probably one of the reasons is that the nature of developing AI capabilities is different from traditional software development. So that probably those differences lend themselves to kind of a faster cycles. The other thing is the competition is super high, and there's a lot of competition, a lot of players, very interesting players, ranging from small to large companies that are actually generating and innovating in this space and shipping at a rapid pace. And so how do you kind of keep up to that? And how do you retain your competitive edge is super important. And then from kind of the pace, fast pace kind of results in the question of how do we uphold the quality bar? So the notion of, hey, we're shipping something, it's going to be, associated with AI capabilities, and we're shipping it relatively quickly. So then, of course, how do you use robust methods? How do you plug yourself into the R&D process in order to kind of, accommodate to the fast timelines while making sure that you're upholding a kind of a quality bar, because we don't want to be sacrificing on the end user experiences. And so that to me is a kind of one of the most intriguing, interesting challenges that I've been, facing as in the time of Gen AI in the enterprise. And we're constantly striving to kind of maintain a high quality bar. So what are those techniques when you're operating in a kind of a fast-paced environment? What are the metrics we want to be using? What methods? Maybe you can only use like small n sample types of approaches, but then you want to also like infer about like the overall quality, for example. So pre-shipping, during shipping, and sort of following up on the experience as we're shipping and landing these things, it's quite important. And then I think over time, having a kind of a robust set of UX metrics that would be sensitive, for example, to the types of constructs that we might want to be measuring, as UXR professionals, to understand, how do the users actually sort of generally uphold or adopt the technologies. And so that's another interesting thing. So not just like around the shipping, but then like how do we over time evolve the product? We might be making key changes. We might change the interaction mechanisms or make changes in the model so that like the outputs become more relevant, for example. So how do we measure this over time? What are the key dimensions or metrics we want to be identifying? So that's very interesting again, and my team is hard at work kind of across all of these areas, but I would say it's really, really important as a discipline, as a profession, to be able to say, hey, these are the standards, this is what we want to uphold, and we're advocating for the end user, and then we're actually evaluating and tracking those experiences longitudinally over time. So that's really what this third area is all about. This is pretty much my last slide, and then hopefully we have some time for questions as well. But I'm just going to sort of sum it up here. So I mentioned at the beginning that I was going to talk about some of these challenges and areas where we're trying to address them as a team, through set of research methods, through specific sets of research questions that we might be asking as well at each stage, and really, as you're sort of summarizing it here, so it also almost becomes a kind of forms the tenets of my team's research strategy. And so just to sum up, it all starts with value. We need to be able to define what is the value that we're proposing this particular capability will actually have. Is it worthwhile for the customer to actually invest in this? And then what are the specific metrics that we might want to project and then sort of feed back to the customer as they are trying to understand usage and adoption of the technology. So is it providing value? And once we're kind of past that point, it then becomes important to understand how does the setup actually work? How does the customer, how do we help them best implement the capabilities? We've seen some of the complexities in the previous discussions or presentations, but then the question becomes like, on the whole, as we're investing in these capabilities, and the customer wants to use them in every corner of their company. So how do we sort of optimize the setup process, and what are the design drivers we might want to identify for the setup and admin side of tools? And then finally, the end user experience. Is the product high quality enough to ship? And then how does the experience evolve over time? So a lot of these questions are probably familiar to you from the age of like pre-Gen AI. And the techniques we're using are not novel at all. Probably I would say that the pace is a little different. So that's definitely been characteristic to the time that I've been running research in this sort of like, let's say, enterprise AI space post ChatGPT, and then really converging on the value. I think that's what overall. There's a lot of excitement, but there's also questions around like what are the key KPIs and what is value actually? What does it mean? And even that's a very relative question. Great, but overall it becomes a virtuous cycle. So we want to be addressing all of these tenets, and then I think we're able to build great products for our customers, and they can actually use them both internally as well as provide and interact in a great way with their customers. Cool. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
I saw a lot of people take out their phones to take a picture of this last slide. So,
oh, nice one.
Yeah. We probably have time for one question, and then we'll go to our break. So who would like to ask a question? Yeah, here in the front.
So I loved your slide on jobs to be done.
Yeah.
And I noticed it was by the roles. I'm curious specifically when you're doing it internally, if you drill down to it by verbiage and just like tasks, so that maybe a person who is not in design or like ops or anything, who doesn't know about AI or doesn't really use it, has an easier like entry point on how it can make their job more efficient and increase productivity?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I would almost take it to a higher level because I also mentioned about the nascency of overall of the practices. So we're all kind of exploring, we're trying to figure out like how best to, appropriate this like for our profession or whatever we're doing. And so it might even be, it's almost like a dead end or you might end up with wrong kind of sample if you're only recruiting or sampling by the role. So that's why it's probably better to look at the higher level and what are the jobs to be done and independent of the role. So that's kind of my takeaway and answer to your question as well.
Awesome, thank you. I'm working on some AI stuff on jobs to be done, and we're doing it the same way, so I was curious.
Great, yeah, thank you for the question.
Great, let's take one more.
Hi, thank you. Can you speak a little bit more about the quality of AI challenge? So as a user experience researcher, the quality of AI seems to be at intersections of the user experience and LLM quality.
Yeah.
So how does user experience researcher take on the responsibility of evaluating the overall thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would almost say, because you might also have, engineering teams who may be focusing on the quality of, let's say, the capabilities that are being created and, how relevant are the answers, etc. And then as a UX researcher, it's not just about the output of the model quality. I think it's important, but it's also, it's a kind of a situated action in the context of the UI. So, and it's of course there's a kind of a interaction between the use case and the context and even the way that the UI is set up and what's going on, like what is the, like workload of the user, etc. So it becomes a kind of a challenge that's, you need to look at it a bit more holistically and kind of through the lens of like, the actual interaction and the experience that we're providing. And so definitely like model output, model quality feeds into that. And then we need to have methods and techniques that are sensitive to evaluating that. But it's not just all about that. It's more holistic, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jan. One more round of applause.
Thank you.
Great. So we're going to break now. So please come back at 55.
In a work world that's more disconnected and remote, how do we, as researchers, build trust? How do we get our partners to understand that our research can help teams reach new heights? Well, we know it's not through PDFs and presentations. Even the most thorough research isn't enough to build that trusted connection, to get you a seat at the table. What builds connections is stories, experiences, and feelings. Feelings you really get when you're there. When your stakeholders see you uncover a great insight live, they see the magic of research, and they see you. Because when it comes to research, seeing is believing. Turn research skeptics into research champions with Look Back.
User interviews is the fastest and easiest way to recruit participants for research. We're known for fast matching, a high-quality audience, and a simple workflow that researchers love. Start for free at userinterviews.com.
How are people feeling? All right. We've got one more talk by Jenny Lowe, who I'll invite up here in a moment, and then that'll be followed by a panel with some of the all-stars of our field right now, some voices I think you'll be really excited to hear from. Great. Okay, I'm going to welcome Jenny on up to the stage. She's going to be presenting her talk, Mind the Gap. Come on in, everyone, and take your seats.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny, and I currently do research and product strategy at Global AI Platform. Today, I'm thrilled to dive into how user research and machine learning engineer can come together to create AI products that people truly love. So right now, we're seeing an explosive growth in AI investment. This shouldn't surprise anyone. And things are continuing to grow without signs of slowing down. So technology is advancing at breakneck speed, and the possibilities seem endless with everyone building AI. But here's an uncomfortable truth. More than 80% of AI projects actually fail. That's twice the rate of failure for IT projects that do not involve AI. So I hear some ahs in the audience as well. So that means we're pouring so much money, but we're actually failing to understand how to translate this AI's enormous potential into concrete results. And this is where you and user research can come in. You have this enormous opportunity to play in this critical process. And most of the time, it's not about improving the models, per se. It's really about making sure we're solving valuable problems and creating this genuine value for people. And so today, I'm going to walk you through how to bridge that gap and create products people actually want. So I've spent years trying to bridge this gap at different companies that use machine learning to solve different types of user problems. Just to highlight a few, I was at Uber, where machine learning systems are working on ETA predictions and rider-driver matching and also fraud detection. And at Grammarly, I was working with machine learning for natural language processing and working on products and features for communication, and also saw their transition from natural language processing into large language models. And today, I work at Global AI Platform, that is an AI startup funded by SK Telecom, the largest South Korean telecom provider, working to bring forward a personal AI assistant that aims to solve daily planning needs. So as I reflect back on my own experience in this evolution of kind of this AI development process, I've been asking myself, what and where should research contribute? What is the product development process today when it involves AI and large language models? Where can research look ahead of this product development process and effectively foreshadow what they might need and then craft the work to inform impact? So today, I've summarized them into 6 key questions that I think user research can contribute to AI product development. I believe this could be a starter kit to help close the gap with your work with machine learning engineers. And so I'm going to go over each of these 6 questions. And for each of them, I'm going to explain why it's important. I'll share an example, an opportunity for us, and where research can then create impact. So the first question, what are the top use cases to solve for your users? This might sound very obvious, but I'll explain why. What actually happens in AI companies is that a lot of engineers actually fall in love with the technology and what it can do, and oftentimes may forget not what the users need it to do. And this is so extremely important because use cases really is the kind of acts as an alignment tool in building AI products. You can use it as a bridge between the technical capabilities and the real-world user value. And so you'll be using these use cases as well to then trying to map out all the specific key concrete tasks as part of that use case. And those tasks is what you use to actually try to help evaluate model performance as well. So Lastly, these use cases also help you set an expectation on what the AI can do particularly well. And oftentimes, you'll see companies or teams that have this common temptation to boil the ocean. And it's because maybe leaders or engineers teams think that AI can do everything, and so they have this expectation, wanting it to do everything. But in actuality, it cannot. And so this is why use cases, and particularly from user research, that can really help formulate that. Here is an example that I took from Manus AI. It is a relatively new general purpose AI agent, and it helps you kind of like go through specific tasks, and it'll help you execute those tasks autonomously. So I love this example of Manus because they actually started off with 2 use cases, 1 or 2 in their launch videos, specifically travel planning and financial analysis. But over time, you can go onto their website, and you see this use case library continuously expand. And I think that use cases are extremely important, and when you go into AI startups, you'll oftentimes find use cases on their websites. And I think this is kind of a behind-the-scenes view of understanding what their model might be substantially good and being trained on. So that's also one way to kind of understand what's happening kind of behind the scenes as well. And here's the opportunity for us and what you can do as researchers. The methods here might be classic interviews, tasks, and workflow observations with competitor analysis. And some of the example, an image here is that we did a virtual mapping exercise using Miro with users to really understand for a particular use case, what are the types of tasks they want to do themselves and maintain control? What are some of the tasks they may want to delegate to AI to do? And you also can kind of start crafting out the entire workflow process for the user on these particular types of use cases. So as you can see, this work can directly inform the shaping and definition of the use case, particularly where it starts and where it ends. Where is the role of AI in this, and what is the role of the user to participate in this as well? So in reviewing many AI products, and particularly LLMs that generate text output, I've seen some very common themes where AI is particularly used for use cases. We see these kind of repetitive, low-value tasks, or like kind of limited resources because I don't have enough time. So maybe like writing down meeting into trying to transcripts. That's an example. Or limited knowledge and skill, right? You're trying to do language and you don't know, and you're trying to do translation. That could help. And lastly, kind of like limited memory to recall, maybe trying to remember someone's birthday or like an important appointments and things like that. That could also be helpful. But what I'm just trying to say is that there are many different types of use cases out there for you to explore that you could bring to your companies where you think that users would find absolutely value, but also identify where the user and the AI role can play in this particular purpose and journey. So now brings me to question number 2. What is the definition of good and bad? And what does this good mean for users, and what does bad mean for users? And you might actually quickly arrive here after you define your use case. And why is this so important to get right? And it's because technical teams too often focus on these kind of accuracy metrics, kind of relevance and kind of performance metrics as well. And sometimes when they do that, they end up shipping something that works, but doesn't actually make much of value to users. So if you really want to make sure that it is something of value, you want to make sure that it's, when you understand with the users, how do you kind of align that with your kind of technical team and kind of be explicit of what makes something really good. So here's an example of a project that we did at Grammarly trying to build personable rewrites. So it was a very simple study, right? You have the original text and you have personable rewrites, and you're trying to understand with the users what makes the personal rewrite better or not. And we understood that sometimes the model led itself to be extremely verbose, overuse of commas, and we started to understand how to codify it into the model itself. So this is just a very simple study, very quick, but what this showed is that it really is important to look at what is good. Define that, understand what context it makes good particularly strong, and let that be a way to kind of communicate with your machine learning engineering team to kind of build improvements from there. And And what are some outcomes you can drive? This is so extremely important. And one of the specific things you can drive is prompt engineering. And as you heard from earlier presentations today, examples are so key to the performance, and explanations in particular would even help so. So if you're able to specify that, you're actually helping the machine learning engineer do a lot of great work to be able to do that and kind of codify it in that. And these examples kind of help inform the different types of prompting. You can like one shot for one example, or a few shots for multiple. And lastly is that it can help create these guidelines for evaluation rubrics. And so here's an example of a company, Super Annotate. They're a data annotation platform. And what they can do is that you can actually specify what makes something good in terms of output. And then they use these kind of human evaluators to assess the model quality and kind of create these labeled training sets. And what that means is that they're learning from what user research defines as user-centric definition of good, and able to kind of scale that out and then being kind of embedded into the human labeled data set itself. So this is extremely helpful and impactful when you can kind of land that type of impact and influence as well. And then question number 3, what if users' request is out of scope? And that can sometimes happen because LLMs have an open box, and what if they're asking something that the AI product cannot actually do? My note here is that it's a signal that your product is misaligned with your product boundaries, with the user's expectation. And oftentimes, what we see is that people might actually might actually not handle these cases very well. A lot of AI products don't do well. They get these generic error messages or unhelpful responses. So you actually risk losing trust. In this case, as user researchers, we should really see these out of scope as gold mines. We can definitely help to a product, and then offer absolutely love that does this really well, I think, is Perplexity. In this case, when you ask it everything, and it'll tell me things it cannot do. And sometimes a very simple kind of test would be like, what can you do? What can you not do? And you see all these range of different answers. But I felt like using these prompts or kind of errors to actually do user education, teaching them in moments of what your product can do. And what outcomes can you drive? As user research, we may do things like onboarding tests, doing different types of interviews and observations to understand people's mental models, and that actually sets up clear upfront expectations for the users on what they should expect going in. So you can help your design team, your product team, your engineering team to craft that. Like, how do you actually make sure you set the right expectations for them going in? And in cases when there are misalignment, maybe you are foreshadowing some instances where there might happen, you can actually help craft these responses in advance. Maybe kind of offer some suggestive ways in which we want to hyperlink things or doing a specific kind of content, and help the team to kind of land that type of impact. So here's an example of Aster app, the app that we're currently building at Global AI Platform. We offer a clear refusal message when people are requesting things that cannot be done. And then we suggest alternatives and workarounds so that if someone asks, can you play music? That's not something we can do. We then say we cannot directly play music for you, but recommend you different playlists, or kind of like just asking for a question around letting us know your favorite genre or mood, as an example. So question 4 gets to the heart of AI communication. What role, tone of voice, and persona should your LLM have? I find this to be extremely important because how your AI communicates is just as important as what it communicates. Because the same factually correct answer might actually feel trustworthy or unreliable. It really depends on how it's delivered. A product that I think that does this particularly well is Pi by Inflection. They're a personal AI assistant that brands themselves as an emotionally intelligent thought partner. And I love the types of conversations that I can have with Pi. And you can see here, even by the tone, my goal is to be useful, friendly, and fun. Ask me for advice, for answers, whatever's on your mind. And then it can be this kind of empathetic kind of response, include emojis as well. And so this is something that makes the experience so substantially different just by the tone and personality of what the LLM carries. So what machine learning engineers here actually, because they're so focused on the functionality, sometimes these qualities of tone and personality isn't so much paid attention. Sometimes it's not, not the first thing that kind of think about or pay as much emphasis on. This is where I think research can really kind of come in, help them understand in what context of the kind of use case should they expect, users expect what type of tone and kind of persona to kind of like understand from the LLM. This is something that you can definitely influence. So your deep understanding of users in context will directly shape the conversational experience. So as I noted before, this really is about understanding your company's brand voice as well, right? You want to be able to work with your design team and your company leadership to understand what is the brand that your company is trying to portray. And then you can define that voice and kind of like help influence that in the LLM. The image here is an example of some typical components of a prompt. As you mentioned in your previous talks, right? Like most of the time, there's going to be a role, a task, context, structure, tone, examples, and format. So here, as you can see, the tone is something that you can definitely influence and kind of even embed into the system instructions of advanced prompts. So this is an example as to how an insight kind of gets directly funneled into the engineering work as well. Number 5. How should your users actually interact with your AI product? Well, too often, people default with conversational UI. But what aspects should be or shouldn't be? Is that the default answer? Like, is there anything better? Well, absolutely. I think that this interaction, because these design decisions fundamentally change what your models need to be optimized for. And right now in the industry, there is such a chase towards chat. Whenever anyone talks about AI, it defaults to chat. But what people don't understand is conversational UI is a lot of work. And it's very hard because you need these strong intent extraction capabilities. When users are expressing their intent in ambiguous, natural language, you need to find a way to know what they're trying to say. And that's a lot of work. And you also want to kind of help the team evaluate the trade-offs. If something is so easy to do by a click of a button, should you actually let your users expend the effort and ask it in a prompt in a conversation to actually do, or just better to click a button itself? So my note here is that you want to be able to engage with your engineering teams to try to understand, are these types of the tasks that really need conversation, or can it just be something so simple with graphical user interface types of support that you can do? So help the team evaluate those trade-offs, and particular to the use cases and tasks that you're trying to solve for. I love this example from Notion AI, and they are not, I believe that they started out with a graphical user interface, with a big page, canvas, and then they built AI capability on top. But what they actually did with this progression, and now the conversation or kind of AI capability is more embedded into the page itself, is very clever. Because conversational AI is unstructured, and you have structured data on your actual page. So you're able to rely on some of the structured content, and then being able to offer that as context to your conversational UI and try to make some improvements and better understand the intent. And that's very clever. And also, you want to understand the context of what they're trying to do. So I thought this is very clever, but also a lot of good use of a hybrid model that you can really influence with your team to assess what types of interaction patterns to use for. And so my note here is to really work with a team to understand what tasks benefit from having specific graphical user interface or conversational UI, or even more so, to create new ones. Here is a product that I've really fallen in love to and feel very innovative, and they're called Cove.ai. They use this kind of interactive prompting, and then when you prompt, it creates cards, and you can talk to the cute octopus assistant here and specify which card you want to chat with. and then it'll generate more cards, and it'll kind of update so forth. So the purpose and use case of Cove was to do brainstorming, iterations, ideation. So it utilizes this really broad, big canvas to help you kind of ideate in thoughts. So I thought this is very clever because it really, when you ideate and brainstorm, things and ideas are always very juggled and kind of muddled, and they're able to kind of utilize that and also incorporate AI in a very innovative interaction model. So what I'm noting here is that we're in a very innovative time, and I really encourage all of us as to what are some of the new ways of expressing AI that really helps users achieve their tasks and use cases effectively well. Is conversational the right way to go? You can talk to your teams and actually help guide them to make those types of decisions. Number 6, my last one. What data sources can help encapsulate the relevant context of the user? And here's why it's important. If you're providing this outdated information, it can really cause reliability issues, right? When the users can't trust the application's outputs. And LLMs also easily hallucinate, so it can create this kind of factually inaccurate content as well. So if you're able to provide context or get context from the user, that knowledge source is key. And a product that I see doing this very well is Notebook LM. And Notebook actually allows you to offer users to specify explicitly what makes context. You can bring your documents in, you can copy, paste, add links, or you can actually go tell it to kind of search specific things, give you some example sources, and then you have verified and confirmed that those are good sources, and then you can bring it in. So I thought this is very clever, and because you will always have to identify within the use cases of your company, do the users actually expect explicit context or implicit context? Do they want to specify that for you or not? How can you help the team to make sure that there is certain capabilities so that you're actually defining this very well? So in summary, I want to step back and kind of recap each piece. If we think about a machine learner's kind of like workflow, it begins with actually data strategy and model selection and prototyping. That piece is kind of a big piece of their work. And then with architecture, and then prompt engineering optimization, and then evaluation and testing. As we talked about the 6 areas, these 6 areas of user research can really effectively map back to the machine learning engineer's workflow and kind of really infuse and kind of impact what types of insights and kind of work that they can do. For example, your use case research drives model selection. Your interaction design research influences the architecture design decisions. Your persona research shapes the prompt engineering. And your definitions of good will influence the evaluation criteria and testing. So what I'm trying to encourage is that we're not doing research in the sidelines. We're embedded in the technical process in this ever-changing space, and you have a great place to make impact. So let's commit to defining what good means to our users and ensure every interaction adds value. And together, we can build AI products that truly matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. We've got time for a little bit of Q&A, so please raise your hand if you have a question for Jenny. Someone will bring a mic around. There's a question there in the back.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, should I go?
Yeah, please, Savi.
So what in AI applications really makes you cringe when you see people do it? So what's like a pattern you should avoid?
That's such a good one. There's so many bad ones that sometimes I forget about them. I think that it's funny because I think that there are a lot of products that are trying their best, and you can kind of see definitely in testing other people's types of products. There is, for example, I think right now I'm seeing some personal AI assistants maybe going in the hardware space. And maybe it gives the user research side of me just cringe to be like, how are you going to tackle the privacy? How are you going to tackle specific things? And so I think that maybe the aspects here is that the also cringeworthy moment is that you may see that the fascination with the technology is faster than actually thinking deeply whether it's solving a clear user value. So maybe there are specific hardware that I see that have spent so much work and investment in R&D, but the use cases are so weak and so clear that it may not be of substance and value. So maybe that's what the cringeworthy moments are, when you kind of like can see that, did you talk to a user researcher about this? Like, I don't, like, who is doing the research behind this? And so maybe those are the moments where I can definitely see like cringeworthy. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Sabrina. I was excitedly texting my product manager during your talk, by the way, so thank you for a great talk. I recently went to an academic and industry conference where we were talking about trust in AI, and two major themes came up. One, we need to put more participatory design in any AI products we make, which I feel like this talk really covered. And then another theme that came up was this idea that often AI products are built to like solve the sexiest problem, something that looks flashy.
Absolutely.
But in reality, what users want is AI to fix low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
And sometimes that's not sexy, right? So how do you encourage teams to focus on sometimes these lower-hanging fruit problems that AI can solve that actually will alleviate so many user problems that sometimes maybe the bigger, flashier thing is not, right in the moment?
Yeah, oh, such a great question. I think it really depends on that leadership as well, and kind of where they want to kind of, I've seen some companies, maybe they split the arms, right? They have the big flashy things because they actually have, the specific things they really want to kind of prove out into the market. And they think that the big sexy thing could really help kind of establish a presence for them in this big AI space. So not that it's entirely wrong, it's just the starting point is not the right place to actually deliver value. Maybe it is in some point in time, and so some companies are gonna need to balance that. When the actual low-hanging fruits is what drives kind of the people coming to use you, it is also true that sometimes you're just in a huge ocean of so much innovation. How do you stand out? So I think being able to kind of balance the two with your company to like, could the actual low-hanging fruit become sexy? That's great if you're able to kind of land that influence too. But I think that's probably trying to understand that starting point of that. And definitely that kind of temptation to not do something that other people have done before can also be a huge reason for why that big sexy thing is so much more attractive. And everyone is trying to do that. So I think being able to kind of offer them as a sounding board, what specifically do you want to land? I think that would be a really key kind of way to land the impact that you want and results. Yeah.
We've got time for one more question.
Hi, thank you for a great talk. It's interesting that you talk about the ML process. What I've seen is there's also a rise of Gen AI engineers that are not proper trained ML engineers, data scientists that are just like they're developers that have learned to do Gen AI. And when they start processes like this, they're not necessarily even following that proper ML process. They're just like, we're being told there's a use case, let's just throw some models together, let's just build something and just get it out. And with that, there's obviously the challenge of all the 6 points that you mentioned, but an additional challenge of they're not even doing the ML part properly.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've seen, or do you have any kind of advice for how we can maybe like rein that in and help provide some structure and guidance as researchers?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think that just encapsulates the landscape of a lot of startups and AI right now, or companies. It's just like, who is doing what? What is this function and discipline for, right? There's like data scientists moving closer to machine learning engineer becoming like so close to PM. It's just so messy at the process itself as well. I think that it's such a great point as to like when something is so, seemingly the time is, of essence and everything is kind of like lack, of a structure. I think it's important to kind of use these ways of assessing the product of its kind of quality today. And then being able to kind of identify, like, maybe in specific startups, their role functions are always so murky. And some people are kind of, many of the terms I hear nowadays from startups is like, I'm an AI engineer. I'm like, what does that mean? What do you do? Like, there's so many different things that go in. So I think a very good aspect to your question and maybe is to really understand, like, despite the title, what are the actual types of activities and responsibilities this person do? And if you were to step back and just look at the product itself as today, where are the points that actually is missing? And that could be a better itself than trying to actually implement a process for the team. But yeah, cool.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jenny. One more round of applause.
Thank you.
Okay, led efforts on Gemini at Google, Ariana McLean, the head of research at OpenAI, and Jane Liebrock, head of UX research at Anthropic. Please join me.
Yes, we will.
Amazing. So we want to have a conversation that feels casual. If anyone feels the need to kick off their shoes, that's fine. Yeah, we just want it to feel like everyone is comfortable and present together. So there are a lot of things that I think you probably can't talk about because of the nature of your roles. And so we're going to fast forward a little bit and try to look into the future. So in 2030, what is the future of UX research looking out that many years? It's actually surprising. That's only 5 years from now.
All right.
So I guess the first question to throw it over to the panel is, what do you think the role of the researcher is? It actually, this is something Jenny was just speaking to in her Q&A, which is that various people in different roles are starting to maybe flex into other spaces, adjacent roles. Do any of you have a take and want to speak to that?
Sure, I'll go. Yeah, this is a trend that I've seen as a researcher in people's work that I've been researching, so it's interesting to see it in our own work as well. But yeah, I increasingly notice myself behaving more like a designer, more like a PM, so you have an increased ability to prototype things, to go ahead and write the PRD and essentially like take the next step, whatever it would be. So you're not really blocked on waiting to hand over your work to the next person. You can go ahead and say, like, I made a start in your part of it using maybe some of your data that I was able to access.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, there is so much research to do at OpenAI. I don't really find myself going into other roles. And I do think the role of research is to fundamentally connect teams and have them empathize with users. Like, I don't think that the role of the UX researcher has changed, but you're probably taking on a lot more work and answering a lot more questions. One thing that I've personally noticed is I'm actually trying to bring people closer to our users. Like tomorrow, I'm getting on an airplane and I'm connecting researchers to people in a city. And so I don't think that that role will fundamentally change.
Mm-hmm. Those responses resonate a lot with me. I think one thing that I think about, when we reflect on 5 years forward is where were we 5 years ago? Mm-hmm. And I think UX research as a function and our roles have evolved a lot in the last 5 years. If you think of 5 years ago, we were just starting the pandemic. We were just being told, oh, you're not coming back into the office, go figure it out. And all of our work changed significantly. I think one of the things I think about in the future is what's most important for our role. And to me, that's building relationships and influencing. Where there's an opportunity for AI to help us do that, help us be more knowledgeable, like Jane said, build some prototypes, design, write, PM type documents, which you can do much more easily, as an individual now. But also think about how you can use AI to help build relationships, get out of your comfort zone, practice a presentation or interview or a Q&A with someone and get over that, hesitation or anxiety that you may have or that may pop up in the moment. So there's a lot of opportunities to use it to help us build those relationships and really, have more influence over time.
It actually feels grounding to hear that the thing we might need the most in 5 years is actually also something we were doing 5 years ago, and that's true today. So taking it in a slightly different direction, I'm curious if you've thought about how automation in workflows might change. Obviously, that's what a lot of people today were presenting on. I don't know if you've observed it in similar ways, in different ways than the other speakers here today, but how is that showing up in your work?
Do I always have to go first?
I can go.
Mix it up.
There's no rules.
It's funny. I have this conversation with my team all the time. I think our goal as a company is to be as AI-driven as possible. And so I recognize, it's interesting, and I don't know how you both feel, it's like we are heavy users of our product. And so the way I view automation is like I use ChatGPT for everything. We use GPTs in projects to help create our first drafts of our reports. We put every report that we think is like one of our best research reports into a GPT or into a project, and we have it review our reports. But obviously we still have that final eye of like what we think good research looks like and what a good report looks like, but we are able to just move so much faster in everything that we do. So it's like, yes, it is with writing, and yes, it's with helping prototype and using Sora or image generation to prototype, et cetera. But I think that we're just moving so much faster and able to do so much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with what Ariana said about like the sheer amount of work that you're able to do. Like the average length of a project that I do is 1 week.
Yeah.
I looked back at the end of last year at all the projects I did, and I was like, oh, there's as many projects as there were weeks in this year. That's wild.
And you were by yourself.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's less a testament so far to how much pure automation has happened end to end. It's more like every single task that I do, because I use Claude all day, every day, has been sort of like given the juice of Claude. I'm able to do everything a little faster, a little bit smarter, or especially like integrating context much more automatically or better. I think we will move into a future where there is more true like end-to-end for like pure workflow automation, where we will be able to set in motion like a repeatable process that you would do for research. So I think that's coming very soon.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'll just add is when I think of automation, I of course think of efficiency and saving time. And one thing, I aspire and hope we see over the next few years is that it allows us to create time for more reflection. Jane may be able to crank out 1 study a week and keep doing that at some pace, but hopefully it gives you some time off and reflection, and you can do some deeper thinking, or use that gap in time, in different ways that are more meaningful.
I think Pete is suggesting that you take a vacation.
I know.
It sounds, yeah, I like it.
Put your agent to work.
I'm wondering if each of you is willing to share what are some of the more sort of human qualities that you hope we can retain. We're looking out to 2030. What do you still really want to be doing and shaping and owning? And what are some of the things you might be willing to let fall by the wayside, tasked to agents? But the focus of this question here is like, what do we actually want to retain?
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting question, because it's, being on the team that helped start Gemini at Google, one of the things that we did a lot on the research team was understand what are people's use cases. And this was at a time, just when people were adopting ChatGPT. A few months later, we launched Gemini, or Bard at the time. and seeing, what they thought they would use it for and what they actually used it for often had a mismatch. And one thing we would often ground ourselves on is, what is the value, of AI or this new technology application today? And it often comes down to doing the things I don't like to do. And the variation across individuals of that is really wide. Some people love doing, certain tasks. One participant was talking to us, they love doing laundry. You would think someone would say, like, I don't like doing laundry. And they're like, I absolutely love it. It's sort of cathartic. It helps me relax. For another person, they want an agent to do their laundry.
Maybe Jane should do laundry.
No.
So I'd encourage each of you to think about, the things that you just don't enjoy doing that, suck the energy out of you, that aren't inspiring, and that's going to be different for each of us.
For me, we've been exploring internationally what we should be doing and traveling abroad and going to villages and seeing how people are using us. And I think that for most of my first year, I was at my desk cranking out so much work, and I questioned the value of that. And then by actually going and being in people's homes again and seeing how they think that they're using it versus how they're actually using it, or the features they think that they understand, and it was interesting to see who our heavy users actually were compared to who we thought they were. And so I think that what's interesting as we think about the future, yes, we can do more, but it is about fundamentally empathizing with our users and seeing what they say versus what they do in their actual context, and going back to sort of like that original design research. I'm from IDEO, so I drink that Kool-Aid. But like going back to that a little bit.
Yeah, the thing that I will be unwilling to give up is the actual conversations with live people. There's nothing like feeling someone's passion, and especially their emotion. I think that's one signal that I guess AI will be able to detect, but I think there's something valuable to myself, like co-feeling it with that user, and also for more of my stakeholders to get to have those moments, actually talking to users live. Like, there's such a hunger for that, and AI can do so much to just make it like simple and easy for someone to talk to a user, have some time with them.
This might be a dystopian segue, but what are your thoughts on synthetic users?
Well, okay.
In 2030.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go for it. So the major way that I think we should capitalize on all the energy freed up by the automation that AI allows us as UXR is to create a better participant experience. I think that's something we all probably care about, but I think that there are so many more advancements we could make in allowing giving feedback to be more natural, more accessible to more people, more easy and lightweight, and just part of what you do with software. I think we have a little bit of an outdated model sometimes with the way that we engage users, the way it's this sort of like, I give you money, you give me answers to this interview question that I don't know why you're asking it of me, right? It's a little strange, and I think we have this opportunity because of automation to evolve. And I think synthetic users can play a part in that strategy because they're not human beings. I think that we can perhaps deploy on them the more labor-intensive or boring tasks that we need feedback from that honestly, like, a human is too good for. We shouldn't waste their time on that. So that's how I think we should leverage them.
What she said.
I mean, synthetic users or synthetic data is here. People are going to use it, so we might as well lean in and help influence and shape what it is. I think particularly as a UX research function, we want to be close to the people we're building products for or services for to help them, solve meaningful problems in their lives. And you may find value in learning from, synthetic data or synthetic users in some way. But being able to think about our responsibility to help shape that, and be part of the conversation versus have it be done in parallel or outside of, the networks and the influence that we can have.
Great. So the next question is about hiring. Obviously, it's been a little bit of a tough landscape. We've seen a ton of change, many rounds of layoffs over many years. I'm just curious, as people who are in roles to hire at growing companies, maybe taking a step back from your actual day-to-day responsibilities of hiring, but envisioning what it might look like in the future to be bringing in researchers that maybe are earlier in their careers, or what a progression might look like, what seniority looks like in the future. I'm curious to hear any thoughts you have on that.
I think I'll go first because I haven't yet. I actually asked these questions to Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude, and you should do the same. All three provide great answers. And I was trying to reflect on something unique or different to say that you just can't get from an AI, and having us be just replaced by our own products that we help build. And on hiring, I think, there's a lot of discussion around, new grads and, the decrease in hiring of them, across many industries. And I'm sure have family members or friends that are new grads. I actually think I'm pretty optimistic in terms of, or I want to be on the optimistic side, to think that AI can help level the playing field, as long as an individual is willing to learn, think about how they can problem solve, and also stay in touch and stay on top of all of the improvements in tech that are happening. They are weekly improvements because of the pace of the development. And if you have that growth and learning mindset, whether you're right out of school or a seasoned researcher with a decade or more experience, I actually think these tools level the playing field more than leave people behind.
Yeah, I think there's and what I might say might sound controversial at some point, but I think there's this tension between knowing what really great research looks like, which is what you get from a senior researcher, and being flexible and agile in your methodologies. And so what I'm gonna say that's a little bit controversial is that I actually really like early stage researchers, because they don't have a set method for how they think good research should be done. They haven't been at the same company for 10 years and said, this is how I do things. And so I completely agree with Pete. It's they're coming in. I think the most junior researcher on my team, she's come in and she's driving how we as a team use AI in our UX research processes. And she came in as a contractor and has just blown us away, which I think that says something. And so I think the role of seniority, and even me, I've been a research leader for maybe a decade now, and I was an IC for my first 4 months at OpenAI, and it was important for me to be an IC, because I can't manage the current fleet of AI-driven researchers if I am not regularly doing IC work and figuring out how to be more efficient and drive and understand how it works, especially for an AI product. So I don't know, I think seniority is changing. You need to be able to be in the details. And I think that a lot more junior people are going to be kind of surpassing people who aren't comfortable switching things up.
Part of what I'm hearing you say is there's also just that you have to have a willingness to be surprised, because you don't actually know how people might use the tools, even that you've designed, and you have to bring that curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit and take it in a slightly different direction. I think that AI has a really big part to play in developing and building the pipeline of the junior workers who will become the senior workers of the future. There's been a lot of interest with enterprise in how do we help our employees learn at any stage of their journey, and it begins when they're in university, right? Because there's a whole evolution in education happening. So how do we support that end to end? I think there's so much to learn. I'm really excited to innovate on how, as someone enters your company, do you upskill them quickly, and how can they be empowered to quickly get up to a level that might have taken more years to master. And I think with the types of things that are being automated, it's not like, I think we all know, like, you don't need that many reps to understand like what an interview is or like what a survey is. It's more those refinements. So I think you can like leapfrog a little bit faster to that intermediate stage.
So what are some of the skills that you'd be looking for in a researcher? Yeah, just things that might matter more now than ever.
The one word that comes to mind is adaptability. Just like, you know, if you don't like change, to figure out how to like change, and you know, adapt.
What he said is exactly it.
Adaptability and communication, and I'm not sure if this is how you're feeling. It's like there's so much work that we're doing right now, and being able to know how to communicate that verbally or whatever ways your companies communicate to make sure that your research, I think it's the same thing that we've always done, is like, is your research going to make an impact when it matters in that moment? Do they hear it? Are they going to do anything about it? And be able to work quickly and flexibly.
Yeah, I guess I'll add another one, which is just initiative. Like, I think this has been a theme already here at this conference, but doing that, like, I have a product idea, I'm going to prototype it. I think that's very important because these organizations really value that. Like Anthropic, we have lots of very like bottoms-up ideas from anywhere.
Love that. So what are some of the years? You might have just described one of them.
I'll talk a little bit more about what I was saying about the participant experience being better. I would really, Anthropic did this thing that made me really want to join called collective constitutional AI, where so there's like a constitution that the model has to obey. And one of the inputs that the societal impacts team used to build that is they actually surveyed a panel of the general population to understand, well, what rules do they think that an AI should obey? And when I read about that, I was like, who does that? Like, companies don't tend to do that kind of thing, right? They don't have to, and they don't, right? They're just often looking for like what will make business impact. So to me, that has really inspired me to think about how can that apply to my research approach. So I'm excited to, in a lightweight way, make it more possible for users to tell us what they think. Like, if someone is passionate, to like involve them on a panel or on like a power user community, because those people are out there. There are people who want to lead us. There are people in specific communities that could be doing their own research, that could be empowered and trained as researchers themselves. So I really want to like involve more people in understanding, as opposed to it being like a top-down thing that we're imposing.
Maybe this is a build on this, but maybe not. It's like kind of a build, like a mini build. I think one thing in my career, I always used to think you did qualitative research, and that the questions, like what you learn from qualitative, helps you build a survey, and you use a survey to understand people at scale. And I think that with AI, it really is possible to talk to people at scale. And so having to do all of that pre-work of the qualitative and then figure out how to scale, it's like a really well-written, open-ended response can really take you far. And so you can use and prompt correctly or ask questions. Sorry, internally I hate the word prompt because I'm like, what does that mean? Like, ask a question or tell it what to do. And you tell your model what you want it to do, and really be able to, we are just able to speak to so many people at scale with really well-written surveys. And I'm really excited for more people to like really hear what people have to say versus go in with a hypothesis of what you think people want.
One of the things that comes to mind for me is, you know, thinking about when we have better automation, agentive, you know, services helping us do our work, what can we do with that free time? And I think at work, the two things that really stand out to me that I think over the last 10, 15 years, you know, at least teams I've been on or places I've worked has decreased is time for reflection and deep thinking, and time for group discussion that's unstructured. So, you know, my hope is, but if you think of the Industrial Revolution and all of the technology evolutions, you know, we probably thought we'd be working 1 day a week by now. But my hope is we're able to, adopt these new benefits, help create them and build them and shape, how they're informing our work. But really, think about protecting what's really meaningful to us. And for me, that's, more time for reflection. Many of the problems our companies are trying to solve, we've been trying to solve for a very long time, and we're chipping away at it. But could we have step-level changes that AI frees us up, sort of the mental energy and the time to be able to solve different and bigger problems?
I love that. We do have a little bit more time, and I want to open it up to the audience for questions. But before we do, I'm just wondering if there are any questions you wish I asked you, but I didn't.
These are great. Let me ask ChatGPT.
Okay, if anyone has questions for the panel, please raise your hand.
Got a couple here.
There's a couple here in the front.
Thank you all. Hi. Thank you all for the great points in terms of what a UX researcher can do. And I want to ask a sort of philosophical questions. In terms of I do feel we are at a point that we can really promoting something like AI ethics, but we are again in this balancing point between user need or human need and business need. I wonder what is you guys practice or just you personally recommend us to do to promoting something that is a little more abstract like that.
The user need versus the human need is interesting. I'm trying to think if I've considered those separately in that way. Have you all thought about it as two separate things?
What do you mean by that?
Sorry, I mean user need / human need versus business need.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for looking.
Thank you.
I think what's ultimately best for the business to some extent is building a product that users want to use and incorporate. What's funny, maybe I'm getting too into the business part, is I think with AI, at least with AI products, from a business perspective, we're losing a lot of money on GPUs. So I think we are trying to build something that's really good for the user and trying to figure out the business case around it.
Yeah, I think there's another interesting contrast where there's also, it's not a business need per se, but there's the fact that all these new capabilities are coming from the model. And I guess from a business perspective, what the business wants to do naturally is capitalize on those and make those into things that can generate revenue streams. And I think the important role for all of us is, where's the user in all of that, right? At some point, we need to turn these into useful things for the user. It's not the maybe more ideal or common flow where we begin with the user need and then it's just not happening that way. Capabilities are coming out so fast. So I think there's a really important way for us to maybe adjust our sequencing a little bit, but make sure that we still get in there. So currently, how I'm doing that in my work is working a lot with the very early teams. It's 2 developers who have an idea and it's an internal thing only. So I try to intercept them very early on and be like, hi, let's test this on a few employees. Let's start incorporating user feedback as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. I think just one quick reflection that your question raises for me is we're lucky to have a lot of different products that can do overlapping things. So users have a vote in which one they pick up and use. And I think if you look at the past couple of years of investment, given the investments in GPUs, energy, et cetera, a lot of the products today are driven by user need because we're looking for that engagement and that retention to show product market fit, and the business components get added on as we go. But I think it's a testament to a lot of these products being driven first by what problems can we solve, how can we solve these better for users or customers versus alternative ways, and let customers and users choose.
Thank you. I think we had another question here in the front from Louise, if you wouldn't mind coming all the way up to the front.
Thank you. You talked a lot about how AI enables productivity, and I wanted to ask more about what do you think it inadvertently loses in our skill set? And maybe as a part B is, do we have to use it in our skill set?
I would say we don't have to. No one's forcing me. But what we lose, well, I'll say I've noticed something. Like, I think there can be sometimes a sort of first thought problem with AI, where if it becomes your habit, like it's my habit now to just automatically think of it to solve any problem that I might have or any task that I'm going to do, I find that immediately just kind of asking it the question, like Pete did, but I'm not saying that was a bad thing that you did. I think you did that a little bit more as an experiment. I find that often that is not nearly as good as sitting and thinking myself first, giving AI the context of what I care about and what my hunches are. That's how I do analysis too. I always write down my thoughts as I'm gathering data, and then I put those in, and I'm like, check yours against mine. So I think that's one place where it's not enabling us very well, is when we don't give it the benefit of that context and we're just engaging with it without that.
To follow up on the second part of your question, do we have to use it? I think it depends on where you are, and I think the expectations are, at least a lot of companies are trying to be more efficient, and we are expected to do more with less time. And I think it depends on how you want to spend your time. And so it's really valuable for me of yes, I think about what I want to go into that research plan, I put it through a project, I have it kind of come up with something for me to react to, versus sit for 2 to 3 hours writing a research plan or going through all of my past research plans to pull questions that I think are valuable. And so I do think it's, at OpenAI, we want an efficient team, and for us to be critical thinkers, and we need to be. And there's other things of how do we move this along? It's how often do we need to be 100% correct versus 80% and directional of where we need to go to kind of help support the larger business or work on answer more important questions.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with what Ariana said around critical thinking, and Jane. Sounds like Jane has a workflow, just pause, reflect, then use AI. I actually think we do have to use it, because if we're not using it, a PM, a data scientist, a leader's going to be using it, synthesizing insights, whether they're your raw data or from the internet. It's sort of like, a patient bringing a list of Google searches to a doctor. I'm sure someone's come to you, and I have all these insights, or they're plugging insights into documents without your knowledge. So I do think it's, again, we might as well lean in, because people are going to be using it around us. And that's where we can help, shape the conversation and, represent, the insights that we're uncovering.
Thank you all so much. With that question, we will wrap. Thank you for your generosity and your openness. Great answers.
Yay, Yay, you guys, we should hang out more. We can't talk about anything.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you got a lot out of today. If you have questions, find the speakers, find each other. I hope you take this opportunity to both build community and also take in everything you've learned. We'll see you tomorrow.